Let's get right into it. Number 10. Surgery without anesthesia. Imagine you're at the dentist, and they tell you they need to pull out a tooth. No big deal. They'll give you a shot, maybe some laughing gas, and next thing you know you're waking up with a mouthful of gauze. But wind the clock back about 200 years, and that same tooth extraction would be more like a horror movie. You're sitting in a wooden chair while 4 strong guys are holding you down, as some dude with bloody hands and questionable hygiene goes at your mouth with pliers, and you're awake for all of it. That was surgery before anesthesia, just pure, unfiltered pain. The best surgeons weren't the most careful or skilled ones. They were just the fastest. A good leg amputation took under 3 minutes, because when your patient is fully conscious and screaming, speed is everything. Some patients would literally die from the shock and pain. Others would just run away mid-procedure. But then, in 1846, everything changed. A dentist named William Morton showed the world that ether could knock people out during surgery. Suddenly, surgeons could take their time. They could be precise instead of just fast, and patients just had to count backward from 10. Today, we complain about hospital bills and waiting times, but at least we're not watching someone approach us with a saw while our friends pin us to a table. Number 9. The Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894. Imagine walking through New York City, but instead of dodging tourists, you're trying not to step in massive piles of horse poop. And I mean massive. We're talking about 2.5 million pounds of manure being dumped on New York streets every single day. Every horse produced about 15 to 35 pounds of manure per day. And in the late 1800s, New York City had over 100,000 horses working the streets. In the summer, it would dry up into dust that blew into people's faces and homes. In the winter, it would freeze and then thaw into rivers of brown slush. The smell was so bad that people thought it was causing diseases. And it wasn't just New York. London was dealing with the same problem. One expert predicted that by 1950, London's streets would be buried under 9 feet of manure. They even held the first International Urban Planning Conference in 1898 to deal with this crisis. The conference was supposed to last 10 days. They gave up after 3 because no one could figure out a solution. But then the car was invented. Within a few decades, horses were replaced by automobiles. The Great Manure Crisis just disappeared. Of course, we basically traded visible pollution for invisible pollution, but at least we're not drowning in it. Number 8. Manually cranking car engines. Before the 1920s, every car had to be cranked by hand to start, and this crank could literally break your arm. You'd grab this metal crank at the front of your car and start turning it with all your might. But if the engine backfired, which happened a lot, that crank would spin backward with the force of an engine. It was a high-stakes game against your own skeleton. They even had a special name for the injury: the Ford fracture. The electric starter was invented because Byron Carter, a friend of Cadillac's founder, died after getting hit by one. He was trying to help a stranded woman start her car when the crank kicked back and hit him in the jaw. The injury got infected, and he didn't make it. Devastated, Cadillac's founder told his engineers to find a better way, and they did. The electric starter made cars accessible to everyone, not just people willing to risk a broken arm to get to work. Number 7. Food adulteration. Imagine opening your fridge and genuinely wondering if everything in there is trying to kill you. That was normal life in the 1800s. Your morning coffee was probably mixed with ground-up burnt bread to make it look darker. That milk in your cereal was watered down and mixed with chalk to look white again. Those bright green pickles got their color from copper sulfate, which is what we use to kill algae in swimming pools today. Bread makers would bulk up their loaves with sawdust, plaster, and even ground-up bones. This wasn't some underground crime ring. This was just how food was made. It got so bad that people were getting sick and dying from their breakfast. Then in 1906, Upton Sinclair wrote a book called The Jungle, exposing the Chicago meat industry. Readers were so horrified by the descriptions of rat parts in their sausage that it sparked a national outrage. This led to the Pure Food and Drug Act, which was based on the revolutionary concept of, hey, maybe don't put poison in food. Now we have food labels and inspections. These days, the scariest thing in your grocery store is the price tag. Number 6. The time before time. Imagine waking up tomorrow and your phone says 9 a.m., but your microwave says 9:15, and the town clock says 8:45. That was just everyday life before the 1880s. Every town set its own time, based on when the sun was highest in their sky. This wasn't a big deal when the fastest way to travel was by horse, but then trains came along and everything went crazy. A train going from New York to Boston would pass through dozens of different local times. Train stations had to put up multiple clocks, showing all the different times for different nearby towns. Writing a train schedule was a nightmare. It was such a mess that trains were literally crashing into each other because nobody could agree on what time it was. The solution was that the railroad companies basically said, enough of this, and forced everyone to use standardized time zones. They literally had to convince the entire country to ignore the sun and just trust these new standard times. We solved the problem so well that today we get angry if our flight is delayed by 5 minutes, forgetting that we used to not even agree on what a minute was. Number 5. Washing clothes. Imagine spending your entire Monday beating wet clothes with a stick by the river. That was laundry day for most of human history. They called it Blue Monday because it was absolutely miserable. You'd wake up at dawn, haul buckets of water from the well, build a fire to heat it up, and then spend hours scrubbing clothes on a washboard until your knuckles were raw, and you weren't done yet. Then you had to wring out each piece by hand, which was basically like giving your clothes an angry massage until your arms felt like noodles. After that, you'd hang everything to dry and pray it didn't rain. The whole process took an entire day of back-breaking labor. These days, we get angry when we have to spend 30 seconds matching socks. We have machines that wash, dry, and for a few $1,000s, even fold our clothes. The most physical labor involved is lifting the detergent bottle. So next time you're complaining about doing laundry, at least you're not beating your jeans with a rock. Number 4. The ozone hole. Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out you could get a sunburn while you were inside your house. That's the future we almost had in the 1980s. Scientists discovered we had burned a massive hole in the ozone layer, Earth's protective sunscreen that blocks deadly UV rays. We were destroying it with chemicals called CFCs, which were in basically everything: hairspray, refrigerators, air conditioners. One CFC molecule could destroy 100,000 ozone molecules. Scientists predicted that by 2050, going outside would be like volunteering for skin cancer. Crops would fail. Marine life would die off. Somehow we managed to solve it. The world got together in 1987 and signed the Montreal Protocol, agreeing to phase out CFCs. Companies found alternatives, people switched products, and slowly, the ozone layer started healing. Today, the ozone hole is shrinking and is expected to fully recover in our lifetimes. We literally saved the world from a sci-fi dystopia, and most people don't even remember it happened. Number 3. Cholera. Imagine you're at a restaurant and the waiter brings you a glass of water. You don't even think twice before drinking it. For most of human history, that simple glass of water could have killed you, literally dead within hours. Cities were mixing their drinking water with their poop water. This led to cholera, which was basically your body trying to expel everything inside of you at once. In 1854 London, one neighborhood lost 500 people in just 10 days. A doctor named John Snow had a crazy idea. He thought drinking water contaminated with human waste wasn't great for your health. He made a map showing where all the cholera deaths were happening, and they were all clustered around one water pump on Broad Street. It turned out the pump was next to a leaky cesspit that was overflowing with sewage. The groundbreaking solution was simple: stop mixing your drinking water with sewage. This idea, keeping clean water and wastewater separate, changed everything. The next time you take a sip of tap water without immediately dying, thank the people who figured out that drinking poop water was a bad idea. Number 2. Being an operator. Imagine wanting to call your friend, but first having to ask a stranger to connect you. When phones were first invented, you couldn't just dial a number. Every single call had to go through a human operator. You'd pick up your phone, an operator would ask who you wanted to call, and then they'd physically plug a wire from your line into the right hole to connect you. These operators, usually women, knew everything. They knew who was calling who, when, and for how long. They were the original social media. The whole system worked until it didn't. In 1891, a Kansas City undertaker named Almond Stroger got mad. He was losing business because the local operator's husband was a competing undertaker, and she was directing all the funeral calls to him. In a fit of spite, Stroger invented the automatic telephone exchange, a machine that let people dial numbers directly without a human operator. He solved the problem just to stop his rival from stealing his business. Now computers handle billions of calls a day, and we complain if it takes more than one ring. Number 1. Polio. Imagine being afraid of summer, not because of sunburns, but because warm weather meant your kid might end up paralyzed. That was life in the 1940s and 50s. When summer rolled around, parents would lock their kids inside. Public pools were closed. Movie theaters were empty. Birthday parties were canceled. Because polio was out there, just waiting. It could leave you paralyzed, struggling to breathe, or worse. Some victims had to live in massive metal tubes called iron lungs. Picture being stuck in a submarine with just your head sticking out 24 hours a day because your own muscles couldn't breathe for you. In 1952 alone, polio paralyzed more than 21,000 Americans, most of them children. Then scientists developed a vaccine, and people didn't mess around. They'd seen too many empty desks at school. Parents lined their kids up for blocks to get the shot. Today, polio is so rare that most doctors have never seen a case. The vaccine is just another shot you get as a baby and forget about, and that's how you want a problem to be solved. So completely that people forget it was ever a problem at all. Hole. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.